Hello, welcome to Gordon Baptist Church. This online presentation is a regular part of our church life, aimed at helping one another grow in love for God and others. We provide material in several languages. On Sunday, our English material streams here at 9 a.m, Mandarin at 10 a.m, and Cantonese at 11:30 a.m. And you can access these at other times on our YouTube channel. We also have groups that meet in person or online, speaking in Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, Japanese and English. The best way to engage with what is happening in our church is to sign up for our regular news via email, where there are links to additional resources, including a point of connection especially for children. You can sign up for this on the homepage of our website. We would love to be part of helping you in taking your next step in following Jesus, to live life to the full and serve Him in the world. If you or someone you know would like to chat in person about anything or connect regularly with others within our church family, please get in touch by emailing one of the pastors. Again, you can find our details on the website. I hope you experience God's love and joy today. Hello again. That was a rather formal introduction that we're going to use at the top for each of our congregations when people come onto our YouTube channel and look there. Hopefully this week you received an email from us that has a whole list of different resources and materials for you to use, whether you do that on your own at home or, if you can, with others. We'd really encourage you, if possible, to connect with other people, to be church together, whether that's online or having people in your home or going to theirs. What we're going to do, and we're experimenting and developing this, is provide you with an order of service. You know, when you come to church, we go through a whole list of things. We call that our order of service. The technical word is liturgy. These are things that we do to serve God and one another. And we want to provide you with a richer suite of materials that we hope will extend and grow all of us as we follow Jesus. There'll be some instructions about how you can use those, and you can pick and choose what's helpful and relevant to you. We'd love to have your feedback about what you find useful, things we can improve, additions, new ideas. We're working things out as we go, but we feel this is a new direction that will help us grow together as God's people. The best way to get that, obviously, is through that email. If for some reason you didn't get that, please go to the home page of our website and there's instructions there about how to sign up and receive it. In a moment, we'll have another Keeping Connected section where we check in with someone in the life of our church. And then Steve will introduce a new series of teaching, helping all of us think about what it is to be church, especially in this new context. We want to see coronavirus not just as a problem to manage and get over into the future, but as an opportunity to rethink what is it that God wants us to be in our particular context now. So looking forward to that. Love to have your input and feedback. But thank you for making the time to be here today.
Good in one sense. I miss everybody so much and I just long to see you all. It's been good on Thursdays because we continue with the prayer meeting on Thursday mornings. This is a plug for the prayer meeting on Thursday mornings. If you want to join, we'd love you to join us, 8 till 8:45. So yes, that's been good. One thing that encouraged me greatly was watching Ma Buen Diaz. Ma Buen was such an encouragement to me during the spring fair and afterwards. And I was so pleased that Baptist World Aid was able to turn my $200 gift into $2,200. Wonderful thing. It's been so good having more time. I feel like it's been a gift actually. I'm gaining a stronger awareness of when God is talking to me, and I'm moving on that more quickly. I'm responding to God, I think, and that's been very good. I have a stronger sense of God at work. He seems to be using me more. Things aren't all rosy all the time, and because I'm naturally an introvert, I feel that I'm becoming a little too comfortable just being at home. And that I could become very used to doing things which are all about me. But I know that God has a call on my life, and I long to serve Him, and also do some things for me. Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 4, I meet two of my neighbours on the verge on our street, and we have tea together. But then everyone from down the street walks up the street on their way to Darnley Oval, and we chat to them. We're getting to know their names. It's just been a lovely, lovely thing. On Sundays we have drinks with our neighbours from 12 to 1. So certainly getting to know the neighbours better. Another area that I'm thrilled about was that I was able to have a coffee this morning with one of the Mainly Music mums, and I'm really hoping that that's not the last coffee we have together. Love that to happen more frequently.
I was in Woolworths the other day, and I've seen that they've installed these barriers to ensure social distancing can happen at every point of the self-serve checkout process. I don't know if you've seen them. They weren't there a couple of weeks ago. Instead, they were just checkouts that were closed. We wouldn't have dreamed them being installed a few months ago. But Woolworths have readjusted what they do in a way that signals that although things have changed to be this way very quickly, they're not going to be changing back very quickly. These are fixtures that they're expecting to be there for some time. Things are not the way they were, and they for one are not expecting them to be the way they were for some time. For years, many Christian theologians have spoken of the state of the church post-Christendom, once the church ceased from being the centre of society, as being in exile. Walter Brueggemann finds many parallels between the contemporary Christian experience of dislocation and uncertainty and irrelevance even, with the Jewish experience of being in Babylon in exile, being moved from the centre of society. Mike Frost calls Christian communities to see ourselves as exiles in the culture that we're part of. And he says by seeing ourselves in this way, we'll actually be more effective in God's work that He has for us. So in this current season that we find ourselves in, more than ever, we're finding ourselves in a place of dislocation as a church, I think, from what we experienced church to be before. And the question for us is, how do we navigate this period well and remain faithfully the people of God in this time? N.T. Wright says that part of the answer to navigating this place faithfully is to recognise the present moment as a time of exile. Exile is being in a place you haven't chosen, dislocated from what you have known. We find ourselves forced out of our regular ways of gathering as the church. And so we're spending the next 6 weeks in Jeremiah 29. Thinking about how we respond in this place by beginning to reimagine a future from our current context. So today I want to do 3 things. First, I want to spend a few moments first explaining what's happening in this chapter in Jeremiah 29. Then to look at a model for how the New Testament suggests we should think about church. And thirdly, to look at our own context, to begin reimagining the form that church might take for us now. So firstly, in Jeremiah chapter 29, these people of Israel are being captured by the Babylonians and taken out of Jerusalem into exile in Babylon. This is a massive dislocation for them because in the Old Testament, the temple in Jerusalem is the place of God's presence, and they're away from that. And these prophets that are with them in exile, they're all telling them to wait. God will restore to them the land they've been taken from. If there was a good chance they'd soon get back to the way things were before, these prophets are saying, you don't need to think about developing a life of meaning where you are now. Just wait and God will restore it to you. But Jeremiah is different. In this chapter, Jeremiah comes in with a different and less popular message. And he says, whatever those other prophets are saying is not true. You will be in exile for some time. And so what you need to do instead of waiting to get back there is settle down to life here. Don't wait to get back to the way that things were. Look at Jeremiah 29, 4-13. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those that are carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down, plant gardens, eat what they produce, marry, have sons and daughters, find wives for your sons, give your daughters in marriage so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Yes, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Do not let the prophets and diviners among you deceive you. Do not listen to the dreams you encourage them to have. They are prophesying lies to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord. The lies these prophets are telling them are to sit on their hands, waiting for things to return to normal, because God will bring them back to what they'd known before, any moment now, they're saying. Instead, this is what Jeremiah goes on. He says, this is what the Lord says. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, then I will come to you and fulfill my good promise, to bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Jeremiah here, against all the other prophets of the time who said, just wait and God will bring you back to what you've known, says, no. You need to make the most of this time. You may not have chosen it. It may not be ideal, but there is so much good in this time that you can learn that will prepare you for God's future. And what I want to suggest is that we would do well to imagine ourselves in this place of exile for some time. I'm not predicting how long this will be for, but I'm saying that this is a perfect time. Rather than just waiting for things to return to how they were, to dig down, to look around, to consider what we've been doing and look at what God would have us do in this place at this time to shape our future as a community. I love what someone in our community said to me just a couple of weeks ago when they said, what if what we do now enables us to move forward even stronger as a community, even though some might now feel disconnected? And so to help us with this process, this journey, today I want to uncover this question of what we think about when we think of church. So I want to do this so that our concept of church isn't tied to something that we used to have, what it used to look like, that we just wait to return to, but so that we can faithfully reshape ourselves in our current context. The theological word for what we think of when we think of church is ecclesiology. We're all ecclesiologists, whether we realise it or not, because we've all got something that comes to mind when we think of what church is. I wonder if you know what that is for you. Think about that. What do you think of when you think of church? The main word for church in the New Testament is this word ecclesia. It's where we get the word ecclesiology, and literally it refers to those who are called out as God's people. But that's just a definition. And what are those called out people doing? What should they do? What's their role in the world? It's likely a reflection of what you think is God's primary concern for the world. What's God's primary concern for the world? What's he about? So here are three different answers to this that develop models for what this church should then look like. The first model, the first answer is what we might call the Christendom model. And this says that God's primary concern is the church. And I'm either born into the church or I'm called out of the world into the church. And the church's mission is actually to make the whole world conform to the beliefs and the leadership and the structure of the church. The church is seen to be at the center of the society. And we need to try to fit the world into those confines of the church. But we find ourselves now in a time of exile when the church is not at the center of society, and it hasn't been for quite a long time. But can I also suggest that we're not trying to get back to this model either. This model produces conformity, but not freedom. God's desire is for transformation and renewal in a place of freedom where people meet him and experience real life. That's God's heart. That's the first model, Christendom model. The second model is one we see at work a lot today and might be the dominant view of church in our current culture. This is a model of church that you could call a consumer or an individualistic model of church. And this says, God's primary concern is me. I go to church and then I participate in mission to the world when I can, as kind of an add-on to church. It's something extra you could do. In this model, I am the most important thing in God's view of reality. And church is something that I go to. And I go to it, every week on a Sunday for an hour and a half. 47% of the Australian population say that they don't go to church because it's irrelevant to their life. And it's no wonder to me that people think the church is irrelevant to life if even for Christians, church is seen as something you go to for an hour and a half each Sunday, disconnected from the rest of the normal activity in the world. But there's a third model that we see depicted in the New Testament churches that looks more like this. The third model, you could call it the New Testament model. It says that God's primary concern is the entirety of his creation. The church then is God's body of mission to carry out his work in the world. I'm adopted into that body, into that church. I'm loved by God, and my life is an expression of living in the continuation and the expanding of God's kingdom into the world. In this model, the whole of creation is God's primary concern. The world is part of that creation, and then the church sits in that world to represent who God is to the rest of God's creation. The people of God are to be a community that reflect God and enact his mission of renewal and restoration in the world. Mission is the central organising factor in this New Testament church community. But then the question is, what does a gathering of these people actually look like? If that's a model, what does it look like? What form should it take? And if you look at the early church, you see that there are many different ways the church is expressed. There's no one right form, one right way of being church. In Jerusalem, it was like an apostle-led and taught. It was based in the synagogue. It was largely a Jewish community. And then the first place where people were called Christians, Antioch, it was multi-ethnic. It was focused much more than the Jerusalem church on the needs of the community around it. And it sent out missionaries from amongst its leaders, Paul and Barnabas, to go and plant other churches. Thessalonica is much more of an organic kind of a model, meeting in homes, largely due to persecution. And then Rome, where the persecution was even heavier because of the Roman government that pushed them underground as a guerrilla style. While there's no one right form, whatever shape the church takes expresses something of what that church believes, or at least is perceived to believe. And so it's crucial that we examine whether or not the form of our church communicates our church's real values and instills those values in the way that we operate. We need to ask, is our church organised and structured based on the mission that God has given us as a community? The expression of any church should depend on the best shape that it can to be part of God's mission in a particular context. What is the God's mission that he's given us in this context? We need to think about this. We need to think about what best shape church looks like for us, for this season, in our current context. The 2016 census, 52% of Australians identify as Christians, but only about 8% regularly meet in Christian community. In a 2013 study by McCrindle Research, the top 6 reasons why people don't go to church is 1, 47% say it's irrelevant to my life. 26% don't accept how it's taught. 24% because of an outdated style. 22% have issues with clergy. 19% don't believe the Bible, and 18% are too busy to depend. Almost half of people who don't go to church see it as irrelevant to life. My view of church is that church is central to life. But maybe the reason why people see it as irrelevant is that the shape of it doesn't make any sense to the rest of their life. You can see this by the fact that a quarter of those who don't attend don't accept the teaching method or its style. And you might say, well, I'm fine with the way it's taught and its style. Yes, but we need to join in God's mission into this world. We need to use methods and styles that help people connect with Him. Over 1/5 of the population have a problem with clergy. This is a problem. This is why safe ministry is so important, because we want everyone to know what it means to create spaces of safety for people to grow and to protect the vulnerable amongst us. Nearly 1/5 don't believe the Bible. And I wonder what it is about the Bible they don't believe. And if they had space to voice those concerns safely, they might find that they actually do believe the God person Jesus and His ways in the world that the Bible reveals. Nearly 20% say they're too busy. Well, maybe that's something that COVID-19 has helped some of them see, that they don't want to be as busy going forward. Maybe becoming grounded in this community could help them to realign values. How can we reform our thinking about church in this time? I want to challenge us as Gordon Baptist Church with that question. We're exiles, in the sense that we've been dislocated from our normal way of doing things, but we are not waiting to go back to how things were. Instead, like Jeremiah says to the exiles in Babylon, we need to put down our roots in this new reality and join with what God is doing here and now. And over the next 6 weeks, we're going to look at these aspects of the church. That the fact that the church is about change. It's about adaptation to our changing tensions and contexts we find ourselves in. It's about continuation through following and leading in the ways of God together. It's about communion with God in all our aspects of life. It's about learning from one another in community. It's about all being organised around the purposes of God in the world to extend His vision for flourishing in all of creation. What exactly does this look like? Well, you're part of the journey. I hope you will be, to discover this. This is what we want to do over the next few weeks.